I'm genuinely not even joking when I say this. I really do think that the Lorax is one of the greatest dystopian movies created in recent years. Hi, my name's Dakota, welcome to my channel. Now, if you're watching this video, you've probably already watched the Lorax, but a lot of us probably didn't even take into account that it is a dystopian movie. I mean, most of us were like 7 when we first watched it, and it's definitely very different than other dystopian media that we're used to. So I mean, let's get right into it. Right at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to Thneedville, and despite the upbeat song and how the people singing think Thneedville is perfect, it successfully comes across to the audience as manufactured and almost uncanny. It starts out with them singing about how they have all new stuff, cars, houses, and lawns, and mentions that each tree uses 96 batteries, which is an insane number when you think about it. Then it tells us that the air in Thneedville is so polluted that they quite literally have to buy it fresh. And not only is this normal, but they don't even want to know where the smog, trash, and chemicals go, even though their children are swimming and becoming radioactive. They talk about how they surf and snowboard all year round, which I'll admit is pretty cool, but then they thank the Lord for a parking lot. That is what they are most excited about. Then we get introduced to the villain, and O'Hare outright says that he sells people things that they could get for free. And then he claims that they live in perfect harmony. So basically he's saying that he manipulates them and then they fill his pockets. Then at the end of the song, everybody's like, "We love it here, this is paradise," and it ends. So we are one song in and have already addressed consumerism, environmental problems, willful ignorance, and market manipulation in a way that is digestible for a young audience, and that is actually very difficult to do. Then we get introduced to our main character, Ted, and Ted is completely normal. He is exactly like every other teenager that you would find in the real world. And just like any other real teenager, he has a crush on somebody that is older and cooler than him, Audrey. And Audrey's dream is to have her very own tree. So Ted goes home and asks his mom and grandma where he could ever find a real tree, and immediately his mom is like, "We literally have this one that plays disco music, isn't that better?" Also in this scene, their dinner is literally made up of jello in the shape of other foods, and that's because there's no plants growing, so they can't eat the plants, and then because there's no plants, there's no animals, so they have to eat processed food because there is nothing else, which I think is a pretty good detail. But anyway, Grammy tells Ted that he has to go outside of town to visit the Once-ler, and Ted's like, okay, what the hell, sure, even though not only has he never been outside of town, nobody has. To get out of town, Ted has to go to one of the walls and like turn a bunch of knobs and dials. It's very obvious that they do not want anybody to leave, and when he gets out there, he realizes why. It's dark, it's gloomy, it's hard to breathe, and literally as he's driving on this road, he almost gets taken out by this giant machine covered in axes. When he gets to the Once-ler and starts to really talk to him, Ted kind of realizes that this is just some guy. In the beginning of the story, he was just a young man with big dreams. And the Once-ler's backstory is one of my favorite plots in any dystopian movie, because not only do we get the backstory of how the valley became destitute, but we see the impact of this years later. When the Once-ler first shows up to the valley and decides to settle down, he sings a song with the animals, Disney princess style. But while he's caught up in his own excitement, he almost hurts these animals, and when they get angry, they end up being placated by the distraction of something sweet. He ends up chopping down a tree, and the Lorax shows up to not only reprimand him, but banish him from the valley entirely. And the Once-ler is not having it because he has a dream, and he's not going to let anybody get in the way of it. I also really like how when the Lorax first shows up, he doesn't immediately go after the Once-ler. The first thing he does is honor the tree that died. So the Once-ler creates his Thneed, and a lot of stuff happens in the story, but eventually he becomes friends with the forest animals and the Lorax. And despite him not being able to sell this Thneed, the animals still value him despite him not being successful in the way that he imagined. But when the product does go viral and hordes of people and his own family are finally giving him attention, it gets to his head. His overinflated ego, coupled with predatory yes men around him, corrupt his morals and blind him from the adverse reactions of his success. Which of course brings us to the song, How Bad Can I Be? The Once-ler is convinced that he is doing a good thing, and he starts out the song by saying that this is all natural. It's the principle of nature to want to survive and better yourself, and sometimes it takes having to do some bad things to achieve that. Then he talks about the principles of business, and he doesn't talk about any actual principles of business. He says, quote, "The people with the money make this ever-loving world go round." So he's going to continue to try to make his business bigger so that he can be one of those people. He sings about how he's doing good things like building the economy and donating to charity, but the movie directly shows us that this is propaganda. And the song ends with these lyrics, quote, "All the customers are buying and the money's multiplying and the PR people are lying and the lawyers are denying. Who cares if a few trees are dying? This is all so gratifying." So he admits his own greed, he admits to using propaganda, and he admits that he's harming the environment, but he gaslights himself into believing that these things are all worth creating this product. And it isn't until the trees are all gone, the money's run out, and the yes men have escaped with their cash that the Once-ler realizes the damage he's done, and he can never go back and change it. And all of this for a product that is incredibly short-lived. And this is what the Lorax has been warning him about the entire time. Like, you know, if there were influencers in this movie, they'd be saying things like run, don't walk to get your Thneed. Which brings me to Aloysius O'Hare, who really is a great villain because even though he's so cartoonishly evil, he's more similar to actual people that we would come in contact with in real life. O'Hare convinces the people to not only buy products that they don't need, but to buy products that are actively harming them. Like when they're about to start selling personal air bottles, and then they say that because the bottles are going to produce more pollution, then they can sell more of these products. So I went to marketing school, and part of product creation is supposed to be like, here's the problem, okay, here's the product that we've created to combat this problem. But oftentimes, companies create a product, and then they create a problem to sell this product. My example for this is the hair identifier spray. Nobody was out here like, I wish I had a way to see the hair on my face that I wouldn't see otherwise. Someone created this product and then said, okay, how do we sell it? So they made women insecure about hair that you cannot even see by saying that your makeup will look better if it's gone. It's not even hair, like I don't want to get into this. Also, we never see a government in Thneedville. Now, part of that is probably the studio just didn't have time to create and include one, but the other part of that is O'Hare basically is the government. He runs this city. The dude has eyes everywhere, and he is completely committed to stopping anybody from peeking behind the curtain of the reality that he has created to continue selling his products. And when he realizes that Ted is a threat to this, he is willing to do anything to stop him. But at the end of this movie, Ted rips open this curtain by knocking down one of the walls that encases the city and exposing the things that the Thneedville citizens were never able to see, and they almost immediately turn on O'Hare. Because none of these people are bad people, and they truly want to make the world a better place, but because of manipulation and propaganda, they had a warped sense of what that was. And while they sing this song at the end of the movie, it is the same tune as the song in the beginning, but now much softer, and instead of being about how great Thneedville already is, it's about how excited they all are for this new change to make it better. And I really do think that this is a great ending. I also love how at the end we see the Once-ler come out of his house and he's taking care of the trees that are now growing, and the Lorax actually shows up and forgives him, because even though he caused so much damage, he still tried to make the future better in the end. So of course, just like all other dystopian media, the Lorax is a caricature of modern society. And it's much more blatant because it's a kids movie, but that does not mean that its critiques on society should be overlooked. It warns about consumerism and its environmental impact, it warns about corporations' involvement in politics, and most importantly, it warns that very good people can still be manipulated into doing bad things. Because all these people in the town with blow-up hedges and disco trees genuinely had no idea that these things were not good for them. And even though it's a cartoon and everyone's head is giant and there's magical creatures and the physics are a little off, we still look at this and can see how it could be our future. But anyway, that's all I have for today. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, have a great rest of your day. It was way more difficult than it should have been to say Thneed that many times in one video.